the Mississippi, from the peaceful waters of a small glacial lake, it flows. Through twists and turns, whining and meek, it develops and grows. Its waters become a force as they combine and merge with other tributaries until it becomes the lifeblood of a continent, a country, its people. People, through millennia in North America, have used its fertile lands to settle and develop. When America reached its banks, it did the same. Traders to the north and farmers to the south. Farmland and slavery brought those from the African diaspora to the region, and with it, their own unique ties. Ties started in slavery eventually expanded beyond to shape African American strides towards assimilation, freedom, and self expression. The latter gave rise to cultural blessings that are woven through the mosaic of Americana. Within that, a music so unique that if not for the convergence of period, place, and people, this art would have never come to fruition and changed the world. Muddy waters flow. Into the Gulf of Mexico it goes. So much history, so much mystery, inspiring people for so long. Story, poem, and song, stretching for miles, inducing smiles. People go to recreate, people go to contemplate. Inviting Megan Nicole Morgan. The mighty Mississippi River, its history spans years, around 80 million. The Mississippi started in a period termed the Cretaceous. During this time, an expansive mountain range was formed, one spanning the entire southern portion of North America. These mountains blocked the flow of water south. Streams and rivers were pushed north and west. But water is patient. And over time, with erosion, the water won. Mighty mountains were pushed east and west, opening a gap that allowed the river to flow south and eventually join a large body of water now known as the Gulf of Mexico. These are the beginnings of a fertile land, a land that is now called the Mississippi Delta. The first Americans to enjoy the blessings of this area were the Native Americans. The Ojibwe Indians of northern Minnesota called it the Mississippi, or Big River. And it was also known as the Mississippi, or the Father of Waters. On the southern end, starting about 5,000 years ago, the predecessors of today's Native Americans established communities in the lower Mississippi Delta region, marked by large, elaborate earthen mound structures. Inhabitants named the Choctaw, Tunica Biloxi, Chitimacha, Coushatta, and others developed ways and practices that have lasted till today. Many of these groups were an agriculturally centered, multi-subsistence based culture. They relied a great deal upon corn and other cultivated beans, squash, pumpkins, and sunflowers. They gathered many wild plants, fruits, and vegetables from the forest and used the river as a base for fishing and hunting. The nature provided and was conserved and used to grow a nation. a nation that strived and developed until colonialization from Europe changed their way of life. The first European explorers who mapped all the river's channels and backwaters called it a gathering of waters. In the 16th and 17th centuries, European explorers ventured into the area we now know as the state of Mississippi. In 1581, in the northwestern corner of the state, Spanish soldiers under Hernando de Soto became the first Europeans to see the Mississippi River. 100 years later, French explorer René Robert Cavelier led an expedition down the Mississippi River in canoes. Finding the mouth of the river and claiming the entire Mississippi River basin for France, he named it Louisiana after his king, Louis XIV. In 1699, French-Canadian Pierre Lamonne Sieur de la Ville explored the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, attempting to rediscover the mouth of the Mississippi. At Biloxi Bay, in what is now the town of Ocean Springs, he built Fort Malupa, the first permanent white settlement on the Mississippi. Further north, Henri de Tonty helped establish the first European settlement in the lower Mississippi River Valley. In 1686, it was called the Post au Arkansas, in what is now Arkansas County, Arkansas. His post was an area for trading with Native Americans and Europeans who had traveled through the area. A traveler from the north observed in 1834 that the aim of cotton planters was to sell cotton in order to buy Negroes, to make more cotton, to buy more Negroes. Plantation agriculture made those who controlled it very wealthy and powerful, but the system could not work without slave labor, which is why the practice expanded across the South. Cotton and other crops cultivated on plantations were valuable international commodities. It was the economic advantage that plantation agriculture gave to a small group of elite men that initiated the practice of slavery in the U.S., sustained it, and eventually led it to Southern state secession and to the Civil War. Cotton was so central to the South's economy and to the global economy that South Carolina Senator James Henry Hammond famously declared in a speech to the U.S. Senate in 1858 that no sane nation on earth dares to make war upon cotton. Cotton is king. Since humans first settled in the region, crops have been grown on the Mississippi Delta. But the crop that made the area world famous was cotton. Cotton wasn't truly grown around the Mississippi till 1795. The Natchez district of what is now the state of Mississippi is where the Spanish decided to take a chance with a new crop. They and the French had already cultivated tobacco and indigo in the region and were looking for another viable crop. The Spanish time and efforts in the area would be short-lived, as a territorial dispute with America would lead them to cede claims to the region by 1796. It took another 20 years to see any significant changes in the area once America's dominance began. A treaty of trade between the Choctaw Nation and America occurred in 1816. This agreement produced the first significant trickle of American settlers into the Mississippi Delta region. This was widened further in 1820 and then in 1830, when the Indian Removal Act effectively nullified any rights Native Americans had to their own lands east of the Mississippi. As the rest of the Delta opened up, so did the opportunities to expand agricultural endeavors, and with that, the need for labor and people. The earliest plantations in the area occupied the high ground of the natural levees around the river. These were the only places that offered an even chance of staying dry when the Mississippi went through its usual cycles of rains and floods. Soon more and more planters from other regions near started to expand to fill the void and test their luck on new rich and fertile soil. As the potential for profits increased, so did the need for more labor. Slaves of African heritage, which were not as prevalent prior